Good morning, everybody, also on my behalf. Great to see so many people, a lot of familiar faces, some new faces. Good to have you here, and welcome to Amsterdam on behalf of AMS-IX. Quite a few of our colleagues here as well, and More IP is it's a living thing, and it's a thing that grows and develops constantly. So when we say welcome, it is not just welcome to an event, but it's also really welcome to a community, right? So many of you, Danny already referred to it. Good to see you again. It's been a while. So it's good that we actually talk and we meet again at these types of events. And I think More IP, more and more, no pun intended, has become that. So it's really about giving you a lot of good content and presentations where the world is going, but it's also really about you and us as AMS-IX and how we work together to well, deal with the issues that we see in front of us. And I think if anything, you'll hear a lot, and you know this already, but you'll hear a lot about the developments in the market, developments in the world. And I'm not sure about you, but every morning I wake up, it's a surprise again what the world looks like today, given all the challenges and the changes we see within the world. And we collectively need to figure out how we relate to that. But I think regardless of the changes we're seeing and what that means to us individually, I think we can safely say that the future is going to be digital. And when we talk about this in the Netherlands, and we talk to the Dutch government, for example, we no longer talk about the digital economy, but we talk about the economy or society becoming digital. So it doesn't matter, you know, if you buy a train ticket, or if you want to go to the movies, or if you park your car, or if you want to make a phone call, all of that is digital. And collectively, we make sure that that is actually working. So it is very much about you and working together and really figuring out how collectively we deal with these changes. Because the volatility of it also makes that it's becoming more and more difficult to actually plan ahead. And that's challenging because all of us are in a quite capital-intensive business. We need to invest a lot in people, but also in equipment, in technology, to make all of this working. And then when we look at some of the developments, these investments that, for example, are being made by hyperscalers, the numbers are mind-boggling. And still, we need to figure out what we do today and how that relates to the outcomes tomorrow. So it's very much about you. Hello? Yeah, it's very much about you and us as a community figuring out together how to do that. Because if we don't do that together, then I think it's going to be even more difficult. But why does it actually matter? Why would we bother about doing this? And this is a report from the United Nations. And there's a lot of text on this slide. So let's not do the UN thing and just talk about it. But it's actually about these themes, right? And the core about these themes is that it is about our future. And we'll hear about AI in a minute and how great it is, but maybe also how not great it is. Are we going to have a job tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? What do we tell our children? Which education should they follow? And you know, it's difficult. And when I listen to my kids, on the one hand they're hopeful because they're kids and they're enthusiastic and they're going to change the world. But at times they're also, I'm not sure, will I have a job? Will I have a house? Will there be war? So there's also these concerns. So it is about our future. And as AMS-IX, you know our punchline, we really want to contribute to a better society by building a better internet. And again, that's us. The success of the internet is really about that cooperation. It's about people coming together, figuring out how this works, and fix issues, trust each other, and build. That's really what this is about, and this is what More IP is about as well. So these changes, geopolitically, but also in technology, we really need to figure out how we relate to that. So we come from a world of peering. That's what we've done forever. We're good at it, we grow still and everything else, but there's more and more ask also for different types of services. And again, collectively, how does that work? So as an example, we launched Time as a service earlier this year. And originally, this started as sort of an idea because somebody within the technology team, Miguel, he'll talk about it tomorrow as well, was, you know, we need to figure out how this works for us. And then we found that it's not actually that well organized in the Netherlands. And then we started to play with it and a bit more. And all of a sudden, we're offering this service because we're actually finding that it's not organized that well in the Netherlands. But if there's no accurate time, there's no digital service. So we need to figure out this technology bit while we're also figuring out how the world is changing in terms of geopolitically. So we do scenario planning, and I've said this many times on this stage. If you want to know what those scenarios are, or maybe even make use of it yourself, please find one of us and we'll help you with that. But in those scenarios, we look at how the world is developing, and we try and do that 5 to 10 years ahead, and then work our way back. What do we need to do today to actually have a good strategy for the years to come? And that's where these types of services come from, but that's also how we're trying to figure out, how do we work together, who do we partner with to make this a successful future. Technology developments, you may see many of these slides. These are a number of slides that I took from the opening presentation of PTC earlier this year, the Pacific Telecom Conference, Bill Barney. And you can't read them, but basically what it says is we're in the digital business, and the business is good. This is nothing but investment. I think the total number on these slides is something like 1,600 billion, in Dutch miljard, in investments. Investments by the hyperscalers, investments by data centers, investment by sea cable operators, content providers, but most of all, AI. And most of all, AI inferencing. That's really where most of these investments are going, and we need a lot of infrastructure for that to use that. The challenging bit, of course, is then when we talk about these things, we look at the data centers. They're so data hungry or power hungry, and how do we deal with that? We look at sea cable infrastructure, or we look at, we want to build houses, not data centers, these kinds of things. But raise of hands, who of you this week cleaned up their photos on their phone? Hey, no lying, eh? No lying. Okay, I'll take the 3 out of the 200 people, 150 people in the room. But that's it, right? It's us. It's us. We're using all these technologies. We're using our phones to take photos, never clean them up. We're using AI to search rather than maybe Google or another search engine. So it's us. So there's also an element of us as users, and I think us as users in the digital space even more, to think about this. So how do we use it effectively? And how do we make sure that, that it's not at the expense of everything that we build these great technologies and this great digital future? So again, if you want to know more about these numbers, come find me and I can give you a bit more background. But the investments are really mind-boggling, and the pace with which these changes are happening, even more so. And again, we collectively need to figure out how do we deal with that? How do we work together and get the answers we need for this? Then there's, of course, geopolitics. Again, we don't really need to talk about it in the sense that everybody, knows it's volatile, right? And we in Europe, we thought we had a strong partner with the US. We're not so sure anymore. Personally, I think we still have a strong partner with the US. We also have no choice. We're too much bound by the hip. But it's different, right? It's different than a couple of years ago. So we also need to figure out how we relate to that. We're happy we have the cyber ambassador at large of the Netherlands in the room. So if you want to know more about our diplomacy and how we relate to that, go find Ernst. We have Art coming on stage in a minute, the CIO of the Dutch government, talk about some of these things as well. So how do we as a country, but also as individuals, relate to this new geopolitical stance? Again, talk to each other, figure this out collectively, and I think that's a better way of getting the answers than going at it alone. Then we'll talk a lot about digital resilience, or resilience in general, not just digital. Like I said, we talk about society becoming digital, not so much digital society. And I think the challenge we have is this classical iceberg challenge, right? We as a user, again, we're sort of in the market, so we maybe have a slightly different view. Talk to your mom or your dad or your brother-in-law and ask about what they know about digital. And typically it's what they see in front of them, right? On their phone, on their iPad, on their laptop. That's their experience. And it works. It works really well because it's always built to be easy to use, right? So they don't, as a regular user, they don't understand why it's so difficult, why it's so expensive, why is it so much power usage, etc. That's because it's below the surface. What I sometimes say in Dutch, a lot of what we do happens behind the wallboard. It's a bit tragic, right? All the hard work we are doing, it's not really visible, right? It happens achter de plint, as we say in Dutch. And an analogy of that is this iceberg. So all of us do a tremendous amount of work just to keep these photos on your phone, right? Or to be able to send an email very quickly, or be able to reach each other. And when you think of it, it's amazing that within minutes, seconds, you can actually reach the other side of the world, right? At a crisp communication. You can have a video communication with your aunt or your brother-in-law, again, somewhere across the world, and it works. And us, make that happen. And we need to continue to do that to make that happen. But there's also threats. We also need to start to think about, or we are, but really step up our game when it comes to things like safety. How do we protect the weak? How do we protect privacy? How do we relate ourselves, again, as Europe to other parts of the world where they have different types of thoughts about these things and have different views on how privacy is treated without sort of falling behind. And I think, again, this is more for the Europeans maybe than for other parts of the world. We are a bit, oh, we're lost, we're behind. You know, the US, they're so far ahead of us, and let's give up. Let's not, because we're not. There's so many great things happening in Europe. There's a lot of intellectual property there. There's a lot of money there as well. There are great things happening both in research, but also in technology. There's companies like the Swartz Group building cloud solutions, for example, OVH in France. In the Netherlands later today, we'll talk about the Open Cloud Alliance, a number of companies working together, having this fantastic solution around open standards and building a Dutch cloud type of solution. You know, we have developments around quantum, we have developments around even AI and the application of it. In the Netherlands, we have GPT-NL, which is a Dutch language model that is actually very good also in protecting the data. So there's a license model behind it and actually using the data rather than stealing it. So there's a lot of innovation happening, and there's a lot to be proud of. So we also sort of need to shrug off this modesty of, you know, oh, we lost, because we haven't. A tremendous amount of opportunity. Again, if we work together, I think we can really grab that opportunity, and as Europe also be very successful. And that's also about resilience. So it's not just about safety and sort of having the barriers so you're not being attacked or hacked, but it's also about, you know, standing up straight. And sometimes you take one on the chin, but you get back up and you go on. So resilience is also about really having the stamina to be able to grab these opportunities. So again, it's about the technology, but it's also about us as a community doing that. So that's why the theme of today is building a safe and a resilient digital future. Because again, we might not exactly know what the future is going to look like, but it's going to be digital. It's going to be digital in every aspect of our lives. And even though there's parts of the world where the internet still needs to be built, or where there's a lot of digital still to come, it's going there in a very rapid pace. So we know it's going to be digital, and we know it's us, people like us and companies like us, that are actually building that future. And I'm really happy and I'm really proud of being part of AMS-IX, being part of this community, and really being able to deliver that. For AMS-IX specifically, we also are very much in talks with the Dutch government, because you may know this, but we're part of vital services in the Netherlands, or critical infrastructure. And that means we need to adhere to certain standards. So we need to have an ISO certification, for example. Things like NIS2 apply to us. We really have to deal with that. And I think that's true for many of you. But it also means we're more and more getting involved in things like national resilience, but also national security. And on the one hand, that's an exciting part of what we do as well. Sometimes it's also maybe we didn't want to know, or is it really this type of scenarios we sometimes go through are quite challenging. But it also means that all the governments are working and thinking about this digital future and how to relate to it. So as AMS-IX, we see a lot of that happening as well. And again, happy to talk to you about what that means and why some of these services we are developing are, we believe, relevant for this safe and resilient digital future. So with that, I want to again thank you for coming. If you come from far, even more so, thank you for making the effort of coming here and being with us for today, or maybe even the 2 days. I hope to speak to many of you. Come find me if you have any questions. Come find any of my colleagues. There's many. And I really hope you have a fantastic 2 days. And have fun.